I'm Katie. So I think often we sit down there and we look up and we see all these polished talks and we think, I could never do that, or I would never be as good as that. So I wanted to kind of give you a bit of a behind the scenes and show what kind of all the prep that goes into it. So hands up if you've ever signed up for something and then on reflection thought, why the hell have I done that? So pretty much all of us. So that was me about this time last year. So during the Confidence Collective, as Becky mentioned, I said that I would do a talk on imposter syndrome at an online meetup, which is like a little mini conference. It was in the middle of lockdown, so it was all online, and it was in about 6 weeks, so I was like, oh, loads of time, yeah, it'll be fine. However, I'm the queen of procrastination, so I just didn't look at it. The main reason for this was that it was quite a personal topic, and making a start on that talk made it feel very real. It felt very much like you were stood on the end of a cliff and I couldn't literally move my feet. I couldn't write anything or say anything. So I kept putting it off until I couldn't put it off any longer. So it came to the day where I just had to get something down. And I just couldn't. I couldn't write anything, say anything. So I thought, well, I'll go and try and work in a different room in the house. So I went downstairs and I spotted my cat. And at that moment in time, I still believed that he desperately needed brushing. So I went and brushed the cat. But all that did was, whilst I was doing it, I still knew that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. So all the time, there was just panic building and building of time's going on, I'm wasting time. I knew I was wasting time, but it felt all right. It felt a bit better than actually doing, like sitting down and facing it. So that panic built, and I needed some fresh air. So I went outside, and the air hit me, and I just kind of broke down, started crying. And this is when my boyfriend found me. So I think he'd come down to check up on me, that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, found me outside crying, and dragged me back in the house saying, Katie, you can't stand outside crying, you look like a weirdo. So I'm not sure I agree with him, but brought me back in, and he calmed me down, and he got me to the crux of, I just wanted to help one person. I wanted to make sure that one other person didn't feel like I'd felt and didn't go down the rabbit hole of imposter syndrome like myself. So I sat down and I thought, right, I've written blog posts before, I'll write a blog post about it, and if the worst comes to the worst, I'll just read that out. So I got it down, I had something to go in with. The day of the talk came, and as I said, it was all online. So I sat down at my desk in my office where I've been all day, opened my laptop, and the talk itself, I can't remember too much about it. It was a bit of a blur, but I got it out, and as I finished and I stopped sharing my slides, I just saw all these faces smiling back at me. And a few people that I knew were there with giving me thumbs up. And the bonus of doing it online and on Zoom was that straight away I could see all the comments coming in, and people were saying how much they'd resonated with me, that they'd take some of my points on board, how they'd felt like that too. So straight away I knew that I'd achieved my goal, and actually I'd helped more than one person. And that sense of achievement and feeling proud of myself was like nothing other. I'd actually done it, and me being vulnerable of my story had helped someone else. So following on from that, as Becky said, the call for the conference came out, and I thought, maybe I can help more than one person again. So I signed up, and I'd actually put myself down to do the imposter syndrome talk again, and this one. They picked this one that hadn't been written. So it's kind of back to square one, but I thought, right, this time I'm not going to get back into that same panic. I'll give myself a bit of accountability. So myself and another colleague who's speaking this afternoon, we booked in fortnightly catch-ups. And I have someone there to make sure that from January, yes, it was in 3 months' time, but we'll catch up every fortnight and talk about it. And just before Christmas, it got announced on LinkedIn, so they did the post with the little bio, and it suddenly felt very official and real, so I took a screenshot of it and sent it across to my mum, who then proceeded to send it on to every family member, friend. And I know she was just doing it because she was proud, but for me, that just felt like more pressure, more people that I knew, especially my family, that would now be asking about it, and if I failed, they would know I failed too, and I couldn't just brush it under the carpet and keep it as work, Katie. She also got me to read it out to my grandma, so started reading it out, and she interrupted me, my mum, and said, "No, Katie, start from the beginning where they say we're really excited." And I was like, "Well, I think they just say that about everyone, Mum." She was like, "No, make sure you say that bit, they mean it about you." So I started again, and then my mum kept going on about it. So my mum has been so supportive, and it was, I think in January time, she started asking me what I was going to wear. And you have to look professional, you have to look like you're a conference, you have to look professional, you can't just wear jeans. So I ended up with this outfit back in January, before I even had the content of my talk. But it made me, I felt comfortable in what I was wearing, and it meant that last night I wasn't having a last minute stress of what do I wear. All that was sorted and I didn't have to think about it. In around February time, we had our initial run through, and the day before I started writing it, so I had very bare bones of it. And at this point, I realised that I was a keynote speaker, so it's probably not easy to believe, but it took me a good 6 weeks before I've been announced and been accepted to realise that I wasn't speaking in the afternoon, which is what I'd signed up for. I was keynote speaker. So I started Googling what does that mean? What does my talk now have to be about? Google didn't help, so I thought, well, I'll go on LinkedIn and find the other keynote speakers. But they all had special profiles where you can only follow, not connect. So straight away I started thinking, I shouldn't be here. Like, why am I doing this? I'm not a big fancy person. But I noticed that was that imposter syndrome, and I was very much doing like negative self-talk, and I thought, that's not going to get me anywhere. The organisers wouldn't have picked me if they thought I would fail, because then the conference would fail, and they don't want that. So I squashed that down and I got to it. So I had a bit of something to go in with. I got into work the next day, and I thought I was just doing it to me, the other colleague, and our boss. But every man and his dog seemed to have heard about that I was doing this run through and wanted to come along. And again, they were just doing it to be supportive. But for me, that just created more pressure, because I knew I didn't have a beginning and I didn't have an end, and I had a bit of a woolly middle. And I just thought, I'm going to stand here and look like an idiot in front of all my friends and colleagues. So I did what I do best, and I went and hid and cried in the toilets. Calmed myself down, came back out, and I did it. And I was so proud of myself for just getting through it. And I got some good feedback, and I now knew that I had about 5 minutes worth of content, so I needed to double it, but I had that stake in the ground. And then 2 weeks ago, I was still kind of avoiding practicing. And I thought, I can't keep doing this. There's 2 weeks to go. How often would I get the opportunity to stand in front of all these people and talk? I should be enjoying it. I should be enjoying the run-up. So I very consciously, and I've never ever done this before, but I consciously thought, I need to change this narrative and think, I'm going to enjoy this. And that's kind of what got me through the next 2 weeks. I've booked in loads of practice runs with people that I know wouldn't let me get away with it. They were literally dragging me off when I was like, oh, let's talk about breakfast. I thought we was doing this practice run. Oh, yeah, okay. And then I think often we look up and we see people that talk and we think they've polished this for weeks and months beforehand. But that's not always the case. I was still refining this on Monday this week. And literally 9 o'clock this morning, felt fine, and I had a little mini panic and thought, oh, it's something real. What am I doing? I can't get out of it. Felt so sick. But we came on, and then you see them 3 little girls, and if they can do it, we can do it. But doing these 2 talks have made me really reflect. And I think some of the things I've learned are being really self-aware, so being self-aware, but also being accepting of who you are. I know I'm a procrastinator, and now I accept that, and I can work with that and know how to get around that. So making myself accountable. Putting things on LinkedIn, as much as it meant that people kept going, how's your talk going? Have you done this? How's this going? It meant that it was always being there, reminded, and people were asking me about it, so I couldn't hide. I do overthink. I'm probably always, if I step outside my comfort zone, going to have that meltdown at some point. Felt dead good this time because I'd avoided it until Monday, and I was like, oh, it's got me. But now I think that's always just going to happen. And just look at how you can improve little by little. So last time I learned that I needed accountability, so I changed that this time. If I do this again, I'll probably look at how I manage that pressure on myself so I don't have a massive breakdown. And I think often we limit ourselves. So we'll say, I'm not a CEO or I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not even a head of or I'm managing a team. Yet I still think that everyone's got something that they can share. And one of the most powerful things I think we can do to help other people is to share our own stories and experience. Finally, the one thing that I wanted to do today was to ultimately inspire other people of you can go out and do that scary thing. You don't have to wait for whatever it is. Go out and give a talk, stand up for yourself in a meeting, write a blog post, do that TikTok. You're the one that's holding you back, no one else, and everyone else is rooting for you. What stood out for me even this morning is how many people just want you to do well. No one wants to hold you back. So go out there and just believe that you can do it.